Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in and being part of the global launch of our DASA DevOps Professional Specify and Verify program. We are very excited that you can join us in this session in which we will be sharing with you all the information you need to know about our new certification, which complements the professional level family. Specifically, the DASA DevOps Professional Specify and Verify certification focuses on ensuring that the requirements of the customers are fully understood and brought into the team so that these requirements can be integrated into the IT product or service being delivered. Next slide, please. I'm Bruno Veit, DASA Community Engagement Manager, and I have the pleasure of being your host today. On behalf of Sukhbir Jasuja, our DASA chair, and Mr. Luca Injani and Falco Werner, authors of the DASA DevOps Professional Specify and Verify certification, I'd like to welcome you all. Let's go to the next slide, please. We have a very nice program today, and before I hand it over to our guest speakers, I would like to do a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording the session, and the video will be available later this week. The recording will also have a link to the slides that we are using today, so feel free to make notes or just listen comfortably. We encourage you to ask questions at any time during the presentation. There is a questions panel by default on the lower right section of your screen. We will try our best to answer as many questions as possible during the session. Last but not least, if you have any additional questions related to DASA, our certifications, or anything else that is not covered in this webinar, please send us an email to marketing@devopsagileskills.org, or you can also visit our website, which you can see now on your screens. We are also planning a Q&A section at the end, so we could there review your inquiries in more detail. Next slide, please. The agenda for today looks as follows. First, Sukhbir will share a brief introduction and tell us a bit more about the DevOps Agile Skills Association. After that, Luca and Falco will do a deep dive in our new DASA DevOps Professional Specify and Verify certification, why this new program is so relevant, which are its characteristics, who is the target audience, how does it fit in our DASA competence model, among others. Finally, as I mentioned before, we will have some time at the end for Q&A. With that being said, it's time for me to hand over for today's first speaker. Sukhbir, please, could you introduce yourself and start this session?
Hello, everybody. My name is Sukhbir Jasuja. I'm a board member in DASA, in DevOps Agile Skills Association, and have been involved with the DASA journey since DASA's inception in 2016. DASA, as you know, has achieved a lot in terms of helping organizations in their transformations, but we still believe we are just getting started with DASA in terms of its journey and inputs the DASA wishes to give to and provide to all of its associated members and organizations. As you very well might be aware, DASA is an independent and open members-driven organization. It's a platform organization to support the development of DevOps practices, especially practical guidelines and practices, and also to support the talent transformation and talent readiness. That means focusing on individuals, humans, roles within organizations who also require to transform the way they work, both individually as in teams, to help organizations transform the way they build and maintain software, support software, release, launch all sorts of software and IT systems and support the development and performance of high-performance IT teams. DASA, over the years, has evolved in its vision on how it wants to continue to contribute to the DevOps community. As you know, DevOps itself is evolving. The role of and the definition of what DevOps is has continued to evolve over the past decade since the first time the term was coined, I think way back in early 2010, 2011 timeframe. It has continued to evolve in its meaning, importance, and also the value it brings to the organizations, obviously to the IT function, but also broader than that. And as part of this evolution of DevOps and its purpose and meaning for the organization, DASA also has continued in its own evolution of this journey. So as you can imagine and might be aware, the DASA initially started with the focus on talent readiness, talent transformation, and over the years has started to play a bigger role, started to focus on providing a platform to the organizations that wish to come together, wish to discuss about their implementation journeys, their experiences, their successes, as well as their failures or watch-outs which they have encountered with each other, learn from each other. And that's the increasing function that DASA is looking to fulfill, is to provide that platform for organizations, for individuals, for experts to come together and leverage DASA as the platform to communicate, share, and develop good practices, best practices, as well as focus on practical guidance for the benefit of those organizations that are undertaking transformations or are in various phases of the transformations. DASA, the way it states its vision is that we want to be a key partner in helping organizations in their DevOps transformations. And while obviously focusing on DevOps transformations, we recognize that we need to provide DASA and build DASA as a platform for leaders and practitioners to come together, as well as helping organizations in terms of their talent readiness, as well as transformation of skills and talent, which is required for organizations to build high performance teams. And last but definitely not the least, DASA also wants to provide the platform to highlight as well as celebrate DevOps successes that we are encountering and be a source of motivation and pride for organizations which are doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukhbir. Now I'd like to invite Luca and Falco to introduce themselves and continue telling us more about our new DASA DevOps Professional Specify and Verify program itself. Luca, Falco, please enlighten us.
Yes, thank you very much, Bruno. So maybe it would be reasonable to explain who we are and why we embarked on creating this amazing new course for you. And the reason is quite simple. I wish I had had a course like this when I learned all of the things that are now called DevOps, you know, over the past decade or longer. So I started out as a random consultant, you know, did everything that you can do under the sun in terms of of IT. I did specification, I did programming, I did verification, I managed teams, I did all of these things. And it always felt like it was harder than it was supposed to be. And so in the end, this is why I came to what I now know is called DevOps, even though I learned that term only after I'd learned many of the tricks that we use now. And this is why creating this program was so important to me, because it feels like specification and verification are less well known as practices to many people who would benefit greatly from them. And I wanted to, how shall I put this? I wanted to give them an opportunity to not take 10 years to learn this, as I was forced to do, but maybe a bit quicker and, with a few less detours. What about you, Falco?
Yeah, detours are always nice things if you have time, but in the current working environment, that's seldom the time. Seldom the time to have time. Yeah, so we hope that with this course we can help you save some of it, save some detours in the working life to have more on your private life, and enjoy the detours on the scenic route. I think the course itself is helpful with looking into what value streams are, getting around through understanding the need to find the needs behind the wishes of the users and customers, to build up value stream that's creating things that's helpful for the customers, and yeah, produce products that are sustainable, lovable, and enjoyable. Let's look how we think about it. Maybe starting with the next slide. One inspiration for us was that 3 ways of DevOps that Gene Kim, as DevOps evangelist, has coined in his model and put us through in one of his great books, the Phoenix Project. And the first one is system thinking, considering the entire value stream from the customer who's hopefully consuming the product until you really deliver it and it can create value. Through the second way, where we think about amplifying feedback loops, getting from the value stream to the value loop, and incorporating value creation with feedback loops, where we optimize for learning and build the basis, so that in the third way, with continuous experimentation and learning, there is a look to actively improve the system, to look into the basics. And yeah, if that sounds reasonable enough in theory, let's try to put it into practice and challenge it. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, so if you've just thought about the 3 ways and you thought, this sounds really reasonable and like something you would like to be doing, maybe you've discovered, as I have numerous times, that it sounds very nice and easy in theory, but it's pretty hard to put it in practice. So we were thinking about certain issues that we observed in practice, either in our own professional work or in training, through complaints from the participants in our trainings, what they found difficult about DevOps in general, and specifically about specification and verification in DevOps. Like, I know how to do it in a traditional way, but how does that translate to a new world that you might be transitioning to, or that you might be trying to improve on? And so Over the next couple of slides, we will try and introduce a couple of issues that we've observed numerous times over the years, and that we have tried to work on with this course and find answers to. So one of the things that is probably most difficult and most elusive is, if DevOps is all about value and creating value, how do you do that? Like, what is value even? How do you discover it? How do you decide what to do? Falco, is that something that you've encountered?
Yeah, you have to think about the different users, consumers of the product, and need to look into their wishes to understand what the users are doing with the product, to like empathize, go in depth and see, to learn what really drives them. So look behind the wishes and find the needs of the customers, the users of the product. And if you are able to deliver a quality product that is reliable, and you can build a trustful relationship with the consumer, then you have the quality, and then you have the one who consumes the quality. Bringing this together is creating value. So that's something Specify and Verify tries to show how to best do. And maybe also what are the sources and what are the things of value in the value stream.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's hard to overstate how important it is, but at the same time, how easy it is to sort of overlook value and go to other things that might be, that might feel easier to think about. We have exercises in this training, in this, in this product, where you will, I think, very, very immediately notice how you will be drawn away from value, and maybe that will serve as a sign for you to really focus on looking at value. It's always amazing to me. I specifically ask about value, my training participants or whoever, and I get all kinds of answers, but very rarely are they really about value. So we give you tools to look at value, inspect value, think about it, decide what to do about it. That is one of the big goals, I think, of this training.
Yeah, all right, I think so too. Maybe we should not also look into the creation and where to start, and go to the next slide and see into the next thing, which are value loops. So the problem is talking of value streams, which is also usually one thing you start off with. It's kind of like the first way thinking to create a value stream, and you apply emphasis on the first way by creating it in the first place. And after that, what do you do? How do you proceed? And that's what we thought of, coming from value streams and going to value loops. And what do you think, Luca, we can do with this?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, value stream is a useful idea, it's a useful term, but there's something that irks me about this, and that's that it feels like it should be one directional, and I don't think that's the case. That's why I would much rather talk about a value loop. So of course going downstream and creating value, but at the same time making sure that you have mechanisms in place that transport information back upstream, feedback, to improve your product as we must do, right? So this is something that is very, very important to me, and that I'm very frequently missing when I work with customers, that they put too much emphasis on the downstream direction, and they are missing out on so much valuable information, and actually, easy work with information. It's not like it would be hard to close this feedback loop from a technical point of view, but I think it's a rather profound organizational or even cultural change sometimes, and one that I think we must remind ourselves. Is that also how you see it, Falco?
Yeah, it's kind of like getting things together with technical parts and human side of the value creation process. You can get all systems into place and link them together and create some kind of feedback loop. But what you also need to be aware of that when there is an issue, someone needs to be there to fix it. And currently, that's usually a human. So that's my perspective on it. The same thing is with quality assurance, which is a topic for the next slide, and which is one thing we also looked into. And we're coming from an area where we have an additional approach where quality assurance is usually considered as a separate, distant concern, sometimes even subcontracted to another firm, which is doing traditional approach. How do we combine this with the DevOps approach and DevOps view, Luca? Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. So, this brings me back to the beginning of my professional life. I started out as a tester for helicopter avionics. And we sometimes spend literal years from, between development of a function and us actually testing it. And that was just awesomely difficult to work with. And we were just so far away. We were literally far away. We as testers were in a different country from the developers. And so this is something that is very, very important to me, to have QA not be somebody's job, somebody's concern, but to be a cultural perspective on how we do our work. Like, quality is not, it's not just a good idea or a suggestion or, somebody's job description. It's something that should be important to us, and that we should all be empowered to work towards. It's not enough to say, yes, everybody should care about quality. You also very concretely need to ensure that as many people in your organization are able to help achieve good quality, high value. And that's, that's an awesome task to have in front of you. But if you can pull it off, then I think you will derive tremendous value and tremendous satisfaction, both for your customers and for yourself. Like, doesn't it feel good to build great products? And so this is something that's I think very important to us, to give you a model of how you could organize your perspective on quality and on value, and how to transport it to the entire organization, not have it be part of like a QA department, but make it an undercurrent in everything that you do. So I think we can move on to the next slide, which takes this from the lofty realms of culture and things you should do to how do you actually do it. Like, we've been talking about value loops. We've been talking about making value creation, value assurance the job of everybody. But I'm wondering, Falco, how do we actually put that into practice?
Yeah, that's quite easy. There are lots of things that you can do. You can invite your customers or parts of your customers into your sprint reviews, retrospectives, maybe, and get in touch with them. Include feedback from the support for your system into the value creation process. Link the loop and include not only the direct feedback from the users and customers, but also from the technical systems. Like if you build a development, deployment, and continuous delivery pipeline, then you have tools handing over steps to each other, like the build tool that's creating reports, the test tools that create test reports, which you can analyze, which you can take as feedback. Even out of the production system, there are feedback loops that you should be aware of, like logging and monitoring. Log analysis is usually a very important tool to understand and measure the behavior of your productive system. And if you include things like A/B testing with different cohorts and testing out the behavior of the real users and get this feedback, then it's helpful and a good basis to work with it. And that are things we're talking about in Specify and Verify and make you aware and allow you to learn and give you a good basis to build upon and start thinking more cross-functionally and for each person improve the T-shapedness.
Exactly. So I think that's the other crucial aspect of this program. We offer to give you concrete practices, concrete approaches. We can, we cannot make somebody an accomplished trainer. I'm sorry, an accomplished tester or something within the duration of this training. Of course not. But we can show you the tools that you might use, and we can show you the goals that you should have in terms of creating those loops. And then you will have a good basis to start your own infrastructure from. Infrastructure in terms of technologies, maybe a CI pipeline, whatever, but also in terms of organizationally, how do you make sure that people talk to one another? So speaking of that, maybe we can go to the next slide, please. Because I think that is the next very crucial point. Now that we've talked about how can we create information, in terms of, for example, test results, how do you best harness all that you've now got at your disposal? How do you work with feedback? How do you build systems? What kind of systems should you be building? Falco, do you have an idea?
Well, we thought about things you bring together. First, the feedback from the users. Second, the feedback from the tools. And then you have a load of data, especially if you include your production system telemetry. And you need to be able to understand and analyze and use this data. You can start from the beginning, like putting things like test-driven and behavior-driven development in the approach, combining and closing the feedback loop, getting back to the requirement, getting back to the user story, and see if that's something that came out of the value stream fits to what was put into. So you build the loop and try to create things, stories, requirements, features that go through testing, that go through continuous loops and learn from the final behavior of the user. So that's what I would say. Do you have additional things you would like to add, Luca?
Yes, so I think this is one of the really crucial parts of Specify and Verify, where we talk about maybe specific techniques we may use for testing, let's say, but also we talk about things that should be commonplace, such as test-driven development, but still are, I think, less frequently used than I would like. And also we talk about things like behavior-driven development, for instance, which is taking test-driven development and transporting it to the functional level, test driving what your business specialists give you, and that way create very, very tight feedback loops, create a very powerful focus on the value that you are going to create, and give you very, very clear guidelines on whether you're really on the right track. And that is something that is really, really awesome to me, because if you build a system like this, you will have something like a conveyor belt for all of this feedback, for all of this value creation feedback that you're getting. You might be wondering, how do I put this into practice? This is how. We build systems that demand feedback, that create feedback all the time, and we explain to you how to put this into practice in your organization, so that you can not just sort of passively sit there and wait for value feedback to reach you, but you can actively draw it out of your customer, out of your product. And okay, I think you can imagine the potential that lies in there.
Yeah, it sounds like you know what you're talking about, and maybe we would like to go into the next slide and see how you really do QA in ops. So not only development, but also in ops. Like usually you have a phase where some developers are creating software, and maybe you have something like a test phase, or at least parts of the team doing tests, and often they are still working in silos. The bigger the organization, the stronger the ties and walls between different silos are there. How do you keep assuring that quality makes its way into the production system? Luca, can you tell us more about this?
Yes, this is another really interesting part about, I guess, DevOps in general, and Specify and Verify in particular. DevOps makes the claim that the team never hands off responsibility. They remain responsible for their product, or slice of product indefinitely, which of course means that if quality and value are things that we should care about at every stage, it logically follows that they also should remain important as you're entering production. So this is the other side of it. We've been kind of implying, I think, that QA is something that should be shifted left, upstream in the value stream. It should be a concern not just during testing, let's say, but of course also during development, also during specification. But it's also very, very important and relevant in production. Once you release the product, doesn't mean you can stop worrying about it, can't stop thinking about it. Instead, now you have this awesome opportunity to receive live feedback from your customers, from your system as it behaves in production. And of course, you should harness that. So while it may sound challenging to never give up responsibility, there is also a tremendous opportunity in there that you might harness. And that is also something that we talk about in this program, which is how to continue doing value assurance all the way into production, essentially until the product gets decommissioned, right?
Yeah, and that's something not all companies are good at. So it's also helpful to think about it, not only the whole product, but even features of the product. I don't know if you know, but for example, Microsoft or other big commercial off-the-shelf providers, cloud providers, evaluated what their basis of features are doing, and surprisingly, there's a part that's actually doing what's supposed to, but that's less than you would expect. It's sometimes even less than a third of all the features that are in the product, and often another third is not really helpful, but at least not hurting. But what you should be aware of, that there is also kind of like a third of the features in products that are hurting the value of the product. And that's something that every company should take into account, and maybe take as a reason to think of taking out, removing features, getting back to simplicity, which is actually one of the principles of the Agile Manifesto. So that's what I would say. Yeah, extend the work that has not to be done, like implement features an easy way, and remove features so that you have time to focus on the value creation and the value of the product for your customers.
Yes, I think that's such a good point to make, that, maybe now you have the tools to be more deliberate about what you're building, and not be forced to guess what your customers might want. Instead, you can engage in a conversation with them, whether it be actually actively talking to customers or just sort of passively observing them, so that you can know how well you've captured their value and where to go next. Not just during development, but also all the way, I keep repeating myself, into production. What do you say, Falco? Shall we go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure. One more problem to go.
Exactly. So, how did you learn about the kinds of topics that we are now talking about in Specify and Verify, Falco?
Yeah, I started off as developer and looked into how to do software development in different ways, and there was always this big chunk of requirements that came our way, and I learned that hacking it down into parts and making it in small parts incrementally improve the product and try to get feedback as early as possible is one thing I think was more than 10 years ago, which started the process. And in the more bigger companies and projects I went into, the more I learned that it's helpful, and that there are things like processes, that there are really big walls between silos, and you need to break it down. You need to get people involved, you need to get into the discussion, and yeah, that's what we learned in the last years, and we try to put it into this course to have the end-to-end view from the customer needs to the feature creating value, and everything in between needs to be in place. And that's what we learned painfully, and we hope to spare you some of the pain and make the learning easier for you.
Exactly. So as it says on the slide, I wish that this course had existed 10 years ago when I was learning all of these things the hard way. But I think it also goes to show how powerful this improvement can be. If you look at the State of DevOps survey, you can tell the big gulf between not even low performing companies, but sort of mediocre companies, and not even excellent companies, but good companies. There are orders of magnitude between them, and there is no reason you couldn't harness that yourself. But it feels to me that there is sometimes a gap in the discourse within the DevOps community, which still is, as it says in the name, is very much concerned with dev and with ops somehow. And it has been my observation that that's not enough to really create value for the customer. You must look at the entire value stream, or in fact, value loop. You must have the broadest perspective you can have. You must take into account your entire process from start to finish if you want to derive the best value, and in fact, have the least stressful work. Like it's good for the customer, and that's nice, but it's also good for you. And this is what we've been hoping to build with this training. Something that will help you to level up what you're doing, regardless of whether you're actually working as a product owner doing specification, whether you're working as a tester doing verification, whether you're working as some other team member trying to broaden, deepen the understanding of the rest of the value stream, or whether you're maybe a manager trying to lead your team the best you can. We hope that we can give you a running start here and help you improve your practice. Is there anything else you want to add, Falco?
Well, from my point of view, I think we discussed the problems and solutions, and yeah, maybe it's helpful to look into a little more the skeleton and muscle tissue of the course, and go into the next slide and see what our learning objectives are about, and a little more technical view on the course, so our listeners can get a better feeling of what the course is about. So what are our learning objectives, Luca?
Well, of course, I can read them all to you.
No.
Exactly, but that would be boring. But I think what's important is that we really try to build a course that helped you understand the entire value stream. Actually take end-to-end responsibility literally, help you to close the loop from your customers' wishes, through deciding what to build, through building it, through making sure that you've built the right thing and you've built the thing right, to handing it back to the customer. So you have the customer at the beginning and at the end, and so that way you close this value loop. And we try to strike the balance of giving you the organizational tools. We try to give you the cultural underpinnings, but we also try to give you concrete technical guidance on a level that is helpful for everybody. Maybe we can go to the next slide. I'll just explain a few things about the course itself. So I hope with in the preceding slides we've given you a bit of an impression of why you might want to take part, why you might want to take this course. So this is a 2-day training, or 16-hour classroom or virtual classroom training. It requires you to have the DASA DevOps Fundamentals certificate in order to be able to take this training, just because we need you to have a fundamental understanding of DevOps goals and also DevOps terms, because we are really advancing here from the fundamentals topics and trying to deepen and broaden your understanding. And we do this in 16 hours of training, supported by lots and lots of slides, as well as additional course content. So we have created an awesome library for you, I think, of material to work with, not just during the course, but also after the course concludes, and as you are trying to work this through for your product and your organization. And of course, the whole thing then culminates in an exam. This is, I think it's a very much doable exam. It's 25 multiple choice questions. The duration is 60 minutes, or I think 75 minutes for people who are not native English speakers. And Falco, can you remember? I think you need to have 16 of those 25 questions correct. Do you remember that right?
I think it's 15. So
15. So anyway, very much doable.
60% completeness to pass the exam, which is actually okay. We are doing beta runs now, so we already completed the first one and are in the middle of the one with trainers, and enjoy having those training those trainers as well, and learning together and improving upon what is already there. So that's one of the things we lend ourselves not only to creating the course, we want to make it better, and are also thinking about a version, maybe based on the topics on the next slide with the audience in mind, to maybe have a compact version as well. But first of all, we created this course with actually starting off with some kind of business analysts and maybe DevOps engineers to think about the verification part, testing, quality assurance, value assurance parts. And during creating the course, we got into the discussions and found out that actually it's necessary to connect both ends of the value stream. Maybe not too much in the middle, not too deep into architecture. We give an overview about architecture, connecting the specification part with the verification part, where we focus. And with this, it's actually a value stream course. So everyone connected to the value stream, including the testers, the architects, the designers, and aspiring even product owners, can learn things and take things out of the course. And that's why, because of the audience, maybe it's a good idea to not only have this 2-day classroom or a 16-hour for a half-day classroom course, but also maybe to think about a compact version as well.
Yes, that's actually that's a bit of a challenge for me, because if somebody asks me who is this course for, who is the target audience, I feel forced to say everybody, because I think everybody on a DevOps team should have an understanding of specification, of verification, of value discovery for the product, regardless of what their what their role is within a team, regardless of what their skill level is. I think this is something that everybody should have an understanding of, and be enabled and empowered to contribute to. So it feels really strange if you ask me who's the target audience, I feel forced to say everybody, even though I fear that not everybody will be finding the time to take 2 days off from their daily work. But I wish they would. I think this is such an important course. I really feel very strongly about this topic, especially coming from the world of verification, where you're always at the rear end of the value stream, and sometimes it feels like you need to clean up after everybody. And I'm sure that a lot of people would love to help about this, and just be sure that they are delivering better work products downstream, down the value stream. And I really wish and hope that this training will enable you to do that, to put that into practice. You might be aware that we have at DASA at the moment 7 different products that we are offering to you. So there's clearly DASA DevOps Fundamentals, which I assume many of you are familiar with. which, as the name implies, lays a foundation. It describes the goals of DevOps, the techniques of DevOps, the philosophy of DevOps. And also, of course, it gives us a common language by defining certain terms, describing certain views that DevOps has. And this is really the basis for all of the other products that DASA has. So on the professional level, you have three different products. You have Enable, Scale, Create and Deliver, and you have this one here, Specify and Verify, which very rightfully sits at the center of this whole thing. No, but all joking aside, I think this is a really powerful way to tie all of your value stream together and make the most of your DevOps initiative. And I just want to point out maybe a bit of a difference to the DevOps product owner, because you might be wondering, isn't it the product owner's job to do specification? And of course you would be right, yes. But the product owner training is really maybe a bit more focused on the specifics of the role of the product owner and dives much more deeply into the specific tools that you need in order to be successful as a product owner, where Specify and Verify very deliberately maybe takes a step back from there, and in fact takes a broader view, shows you the entire value stream and how to tie that together in a way that the product owner was not designed to do. So maybe we can jump to slide 21 and talk a bit about how Specify and Verify fits into the DASA skill map. So, or the DASA competence model. I really like the competence model because I think it gives you a very powerful way of thinking about the different skills, the different competences that both individuals or entire teams need to have in order to succeed in a DevOps environment. And as you can see from this map here, the three different courses on the professional level strive to focus on different parts of that entire skill map, and so they complement each other very well. And Specify and Verify talks about, you know, the front end maybe of the value stream and the rear end maybe of the value stream in terms of test specification, business analysis, business value optimization, but also, and I realized that we somehow didn't really point that out, it also very much talks about architecture and about what demands specification and verification, particularly in a DevOps context, makes of the architecture of your product. Because this is really one of the crucial aspects of any product, how well it enables all of these other goals. How well does it enable you to find value and pursue value? How well does it enable you to verify and to reap the fruit of that verification? In other words, to take that feedback and do something useful with it. And this is what this course is designed for. So if you look at it, this is an excellent complement to the other two professional level courses, Enable and Scale, and Create and Deliver. Can we maybe go to the next slide, please?
Great. So thank you so much, Falco and Luca, for clearly explaining us on how the new DASA DevOps Professional Specify and Verify certification will give you the tools and guidance, not only in building the right products and services and to actually build them right, but also to implement in implementing the right systems to have these tight quality and value feedback loops to validate whether you are on the right track. This is definitely highly relevant in today's organizations. As I mentioned earlier, the recording of this session will be available later this week, and it will be sent to you to the email account that you used to register to this webinar. In that message, you will also find further information on how to get access to the certification. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, that is all the information that we wanted to share with you today. We have some time left to answer only a couple of questions that were popping up during the presentation. We unfortunately don't have enough time to attend all of them right now, but don't worry, we will answer to them via email. So yeah, let's start with the first one. Luca Falco, what's the difference between this certification and DASA DevOps product owner? I think you mentioned a bit, Luca, already, but maybe could you complement the question?
Yes, I think it's a good question because I can see how it would maybe surprise some of you, and in fact, it was maybe a bit difficult for us sometimes to create a good balance between the product owner, which is also a training that I deliver quite often and that I like, and have that be useful and meaningfully different from specify and verify. And so to delve into a little more detail about this, the DevOps product owner is, I think, geared towards describing how to perform in this particular role, the role of a product owner, how to work with your backlog, how to interact with your stakeholders, how to prioritize, these kind of questions. And those are all very helpful and very useful skills to have, but specify and verify takes a bit of a higher level view and gives you more skills to look at not maybe at a single backlog item, but at your entire product, at your entire backlog as you are planning it out, looking at your entire value stream, not just at the at the front end, which is what the product owner is working on, but taking care of the entire value stream. So I think in the end, the courses don't compete. I see them as very much complementing one another. I hope that answers your question.
Yep, perfect. Thanks. I think now we can take a look at our next question. Okay, it says, I'm uncertain about the required skill level, particularly with respect to testing. While I have some experience with specification, I've never taken a closer look at testing. Is this training for me?
So, as I said before, I think this training is really for everybody. And there are two sides to this, I think, which is that we cannot make you an experienced tester in 2 days of training. That is even split between verification and specification. So in the end, it's essentially just 1 day of training. We cannot make somebody an experienced and well-rounded tester, and that's not what we're going for. We are going for a more global understanding of how you should approach verification, what you should be looking for, what kind of feedback you should be trying to get from your product, and then how you actually do that, is to a degree also a technical question. Is it a web product? Then probably you throw some, I don't know, Selenium at it. Or is it Java? Then maybe you run some JUnit, whatever. That sort of thing doesn't matter. That's quote unquote only a technical skill. What I think, or what is my experience really, is that it's much harder to understand how to use those technical skills to actually drive value. And this is what we're going to give you here. So to answer your question, don't worry if you're not certain about your skills and experience in terms of testing or in terms of specification, whatever the case may be. You will have no issue to follow along, because we will not be talking about, about specific technologies. At most, we will be talking about techniques such as, for example, behavior-driven development, which of course have their technical implementation, but this is not what we're talking about. We're really talking about the conceptual side of it. Should you do it? Why should you do it? How should you do it? And this is where all the difficult decisions get made, and we think that we are preparing you very well for making those decisions and then implementing them in terms of whichever solution you choose. I'm sure you have ample expertise for that.
Perfect, super, crystal clear, guys, and very good way, I believe, to wrap this up. Since I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you, Sukhbir, Falco, and Luca for being part of this very interesting webinar. And thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the day, and until next time.